sports is not something like baking cookies. 20 minutes in the oven, you can see result.
Good morning, you're listening to The Breakfast Grill. I'm Shazana Mokhtar. The 2024 Paris Olympics, beginning Friday, 26th July, will see 26 athletes competing in 11 sports, proudly bearing the Malaysian flag. Will this be the year our contingent brings back an elusive gold medal? And in the longer term, what is happening beyond the spotlight of the Olympics in the nation's sports development? YB Hannah Yeoh, Minister of Youth and Sports, joins me on the show today. Hannah, good morning. Thank you for always making time for The Breakfast Grill.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the Malaysian contingent is in Paris, girding their loins for the competition that's taking place over the next 2 weeks. You've been cited as saying our aim is to achieve 1 gold medal, with cycling and badminton being the best bets. Is that the official medal target for Paris?
That's right. When we came in 2022 December, we calculated we had about 1.5 years left for Paris. And back then, there was a committee set up in our National Sports Council, Majlis Sukan Negara, called the Road to Paris Committee. And so when I look at the Road to Paris Committee, I thought, okay, I need to make quick adjustment to this Road to Paris Committee. Number one, I was afraid of political instability back then. I thought it would be important to have some kind of sustainability in this committee, because I don't want it to be 1.5 years of planning, then we have another committee for Los Angeles. So
Understood.
I said, let's have a Road to Go committee for 2 Olympic cycles so that we can prepare early. So the other thing we made adjustment to was to have a co-chairman. So you have the minister, and the Olympic Council chairman, Tan Sri Noza, as the co-chair of Road to Gold, so that in the event anything happens to me, this committee can continue to run. And then we brought in people in the sports industry like Datuk Stuart Ramalingam, and of course our athletes, key athletes like Datuk Lee Chong Wei, Datuk Nicole David, and Datuk Menawan, to assist us to bring the athletes' perspective into this committee to prepare. So the Road to Gold committee was set up as a top-up provider for top athletes who have the opportunity to bring back that goal.
Okay.
So we identified top 10 in their field would be included into Road to Gold.
Okay, just to clarify, 1 gold medal, that's all it is. We're not expecting any silvers or bronzes. Those are all going to be additional, but the gold is what we're aiming for.
That's right.
Okay. It takes a village to prepare the Malaysian contingent for major sporting events like the Olympics. Can you help me understand how the various entities in the sporting landscape, including the Ministry or KBS, you've got the National Sports Council, you've got the Malaysian Olympic Council, and the National Sports Associations, how do they all work together in this endeavor?
Okay, so for the podium athletes, they all would submit their plans to National Sports Council. National Sports Council then would set aside budget for them, send them for tournament. In some associations, we pay for the national coach their salary. Sometimes the association will also work on their own and top up. So different sports association will have different arrangement with our National Sports Councils. For example, Football Association of Malaysia, they pay for their own coach. Their salary and all that is all handled by them. We just give them top-up grant to help prepare the national team. So for the football, they receive 5 million, right? And then for different sports, they have different coaches. Sometimes we pay for one coach and the association will pay for the other. So generally, for that sports development, that would be the duty of the sports association. We then help prepare the national athlete. And send them for tournaments, making sure that when they represent Malaysia, they are given very good support.
When you say we, do you mean KBS or the National Sports Council?
National Sports Council is our agency. So when I say National Sports Council, it also means Ministry of Youth and Sports.
Okay. Now, Malaysia's Olympic campaign struck a nerve with the public when the initial sports kit was revealed by the OCM in a botched unveiling that you said the ministry had nothing to do with. So I understand that OCM itself doesn't receive any funding by the government. So I think you did explain a little bit in terms of what kind of funding is given to the Malaysian Olympic team. Maybe just spell that out again in terms of what the ministry provides and what the ministry doesn't provide.
Okay, so the Olympic Council Malaysia, they have their own sponsors and they have a sponsorship with Yonex, and their duty, they would provide the jersey for the contingent, and this is the jersey that the athletes would wear from their hotel to the competition pitch. And then when they get to the competition pitch, they will remove their contingent's jersey. They will put on the competition jersey. That competition jersey for every sport would be different, and that's designed and provided by the sports association.
Understood.
Okay. And then you have the march for the opening. That one that you will see on this Saturday, that is paid for by the National Sports Council. So when we all have our own obligation and duty, I was very mindful when I came in. I got a briefing from National Sports Council. I said, I do not want to be a minister who would go and control everybody.
You're not a micromanager.
I don't want to do that. I want to stick to what I'm called to do. And then if Olympic Council, their job is to do this, let them do it, because they are supposed to be independent. And also sports quite different from other setup or other different ministries. Sports, you must minimize or avoid political interference. Whether it's FIFA or Olympic Council, it would be the same rule. And so I was very, very mindful about that. And when I went to SEA Games, when I went to Asian Games, that same Harimau stripes contingent jersey that we put on, that's provided by Olympic Council.
Okay, so that is still very much a sports association, sports industry-led decision. That's not what the government is directly involved in. I want to talk about the Road to Gold and the podium programs. And I understand that both are still, the Road to Gold, yes. The podium program, though, what has happened to that? Does it still exist, or has it been subsumed under the Road to Gold?
No, the podium is still ongoing at National Sports Council, and we have about 307 athletes under podium. For para athletes, about 86 of them. Okay. Now, Road to Gold is a top-up service provider for those who are top 10 in the Olympic sports ecosystem. And if they have the opportunity, we would discuss, Road to Gold would discuss, and then we would include them in. When they are included into the Road to Gold committee, we give them top-up facilities. For example, 3,000 ringgit additional allowance. They can eat better, do something better for themselves. And then we will ask them and ask their coach what is needed. So for example, under podium, they would be sent for 10 tournaments. Under Road to Gold, if the coach say to increase their chances, we will have to send them to additional 6 tournaments. So 6 tournaments would be provided for.
Okay.
And if they need very urgent medical intervention, or they need additional housing allowance to help, during this preparation time, all that would be considered under Road to Gold. Under podium, they have to have a general rule for everybody. It does not matter what sport you are in. If I don't give this to Shireen, I would not be giving this to Roddick, for example.
I see.
So podium is very fair, but top Road to Gold is an encouragement for the athletes.
Okay. And you said that Road to Gold is for 2 cycles for Paris and also Los Angeles. How are you preparing for Los Angeles? How does a person get into this Road to Gold program if, for example, qualification happens very late?
Yeah. Okay. So Los Angeles 2028, they already announced that squash would be in. So when they announced squash would be in, we then immediately look at, okay, who are the Asian Games medalists currently? We have to prepare them. So the committee decided and discussed with the Squash Association, and we identified four fast-track athletes. And so we are looking at Siva Sanggari, Ng Yeoh, Ira and Aifa Azban. And so we plan with their Squash Association, and they say, okay, this is what we do now. Starting from now, we prepare them for Los Angeles, send them for overseas training, overseas tournament. And so all that have been submitted to us, we have approved it, so to say, we start today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a selection process by the committee. The
That's
committee exercises its discretion in terms of which sports that it thinks it can invest in now to reap that gold in 2028.
That's right.
How sustainable is private sector funding for Road to Gold? Because I think of late we've heard a lot of top-ups coming from private sector if we actually achieve that gold. Everyone wants to take credit for helping a champion, but to get to that point also takes incredible amounts of time, energy, and money prior to that. So how do you see private sector coming in to create that pipeline towards Olympic gold without having only to come in at the last minute, if you know what I mean?
Can I tell you that it took us a lot of courage to announce that we would be going for one gold? Because up to this point, no Olympics in the past have been successful in bringing back a gold medal. Silver, yes. Bronze, yes. And so when we said we have already received so many silver, we have to put out a bold declaration and get all eyes focused on one thing. Can you imagine if I just say, okay, let's just go and get another silver this time? Nobody has their eyes fixed on pursuing something deeper, pushing ourselves further. So at least now when we announce, we say we really want that one goal, because when we get that one goal, we would surpass a lot of our neighbors in the Southeast Asia region.
But it does put stress on a certain number of athletes only, right? Because realistically, our goal chances are only in some very selected fields. It's not going to be across all the 26 athletes taking part.
Yeah. Can I tell you, every athlete who already received their silver going to Olympics, everybody harbors that hope of getting. And so I'm very happy to hear from different athletes. They have come out and to say, I want that goal. Azizo has said it, Aaron and Saw, even Lee Zijia. So I'm very happy that they have their eyes set on the goal.
The hunger is there.
That's right. And so when we said this, and with the private sector then hearing, okay, the government has done this, we will play our part. We will give them the additional encouragement and reward if they are successful. So many different private sectors have come forward. I'm very, very happy that it does not cost the government money for this. But I hope that it shows to everybody that this entire nation, government and private, we are on this journey together in pursuit of the first goal.
So as you explained, there's so many stakeholders, so many entities involved in making the Olympic team a success. Who is held accountable if at the end of the road, the target isn't achieved for Paris?
Yeah.
20 million ringgit has been budgeted for the Paris Games, right?
20 million ringgit for Road to Goal. We have not spent everything because, like I said, initially we budgeted for the athletes, but then a lot of them drop out because we started last year. And then you have the qualifying round. And then a lot of them did not qualify. So the independent badminton players, some of them didn't qualify. And then you have Panda Leila also didn't qualify. Dabita also didn't, but now she got her wild card. And so we did not exhaust all that 20 million. And that's why with that, we are able to then look at the moment they announce Los Angeles 2028 squash, we say, we have that money. Let's prepare them early.
Okay.
Like I announced, Road to Goal is for 2 Olympic cycle. When we came in, we only had 1.5 years to prepare for Paris. Yep. And so I will say, don't judge just based on Paris. Every athlete wants to win. And I know that as far as we are concerned, the government, we have already given everything we could. You ask Rexy, head coach for badminton, ask John Beasley, everything they wanted to help our athletes, they receive under the Road to Goal support system.
Okay, so the idea is sustaining that support for the next cycle of games as well.
It is about increasing their possibility. I think to hope for that goal is one thing, but for every athlete to say, I will definitely come back with that goal, I think it's a bit far-fetched, because for our silver medalists and our athletes, for them to go, they are competing with people about their standard.
Understood.
Right? And every nation is investing for the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely understand. Okay, so I'd like to turn to the broader ecosystem of sports in Malaysia, which covers activities beyond just the Olympic sports. So as you said, the Majlis Sukan Negara, or the National Sports Council, they're the coordinating body for the government in terms of channeling funding to the different sports in associations in the country. How do you contend with accusations that the ministry can be unfair in lavishing its attention? So you mentioned football, and I think football does get a lot of allocation from the NSC, even though its international performance maybe isn't as much as high as what we would have hoped. In contrast, we have games like Sepak Takraw recently achieving historic wins over Thailand in the World Cup, falling just shy of that team gold. So how does the government decide which sport gets government funding and support? Is it based on popular appeal? Is it based on performance in international games, or other criteria?
So you have to look at, number one, popular sports in Malaysia, and nobody can challenge football when it comes to popularity of a sport. Every kampung you go into, every place you go to, you'll find boys playing football or girls playing football on the pitch. And so we know, in terms of the ability to fill up Stadium Nasional Bukit Jalil, 80,000 people, Coldplay and FAM, Harimau Malaya. Okay, and that's a fact. Even Ed Sheeran could not fill up Stadium Nasional Bukit Jalil, but football can. And so we have to balance that. Now, we also look at the performance of that particular sport. SEA Games, Asian Games, some of them are not in Olympics, but they are winning world championship. For example, lawn bowl, we have a lot of world champions. Bowling is not in Olympics, but world champion. And so all these sports will be brought together, and then National Sports Council would be promoting them. My challenge is always the lack of money, because last time Syntax sports receive a lot from Syntax, football and all that. Last time, cigarettes, you could sponsor for football. But today you can't.
Right.
And so when that source of funding is severely cut off and government cannot provide enough, you have to then look at, they have to step up and get private sponsorship on their own. Only a sport with big audience can get sponsorship. So thankfully, football, they have the ability to draw in sponsors because sponsors like to give, so many viewers.
Right.
But smaller sports like lawn bowl would be struggling.
Okay.
Right? So that's when we then come in and we help to fund, and then we look at their potential.
But the government still does fund football, even though it is able to draw in all that sponsorship.
Yes, because you must look at the ecosystem. Like I said, football, other nations, everybody's investing a lot. The coaches, the salary grade for coaches in football and lawn bowl, completely different. And so while we can say, you get sponsorship, but that's not enough to take them to the next level. And so the government must also play our part. If you want to say football has not brought in any improvement, that's not true also. Under Kim Panggon, they have. Our football league is doing very well. Of course, you have other clubs that are not able to pay salary and all that, and that's being tackled now. But overall, the football system, you cannot compare with other sports in Malaysia and say, just leave them on their own, let them go and find sponsor. Even though we actually don't fund the coaches and all that, we only pay for the preparation of Harimau Malaya team when they play. We don't fund the clubs also at the state level.
Okay. So there are levels of funding that exist. And I'm wondering, what does it take for a small sport to get the attention of the government and get funding? You mentioned lawn bowls. There are other sports like, dodgeball or maybe pickleball that is coming up.
Can I just say that in the last 1.5 years, we have really given priority to a lot of minority sports. That's a very mindful activity for my office. I tell them every week, look for a minority sport that I could go and support. And so when we look at the number of sports, we gazetted double the amount of sports, from 51 to now 103 sports in Malaysia. Now, if we're not mindful of that, we would just be going about doing the same old thing and just supporting the big sports. But once we gazetted this number of sports, our stakeholders doubled. And when our stakeholders doubled, these people, the new sports gazetted, can now enjoy the applications for funds under Ministry of Youth and Sports. They are now entitled, before they could not. And they can also benefit from the tax deduction policy that we have announced, 1,000 ringgit, sports category, inclusive of sports training. So now their coaches in that particular sport, the athletes, everybody will benefit from that.
Okay, so I can see you're definitely using creative ways to try and expand the accessibility and affordability of sport through this tax exemption that was introduced just this year.
Yes.
How are you going to monitor whether this initiative will actually bring tangible benefits in terms of sports performance? Are you going to be able to access data on how many people actually take up this tax relief, whether it correlates with national sports performance, or is this just something that you're going to throw out there and see what happens in the end?
So this tax deduction policy is meant to serve two things. Number one is to encourage people to take up sports as a lifestyle, because this sports training would include every month how much they're paying their coach. And so if you are just doing an incentive for purchase of sports equipment, people just buy that to collect receipt and they might never use that racket. But under sports training, you actually have to go and sweat it out, right? And number two, we will only know this data when they file for tax return next year. Everywhere we go now, we are heavily promoting this. And the other benefit of this would be to encourage all the athletes when they retire to become coaches, because now there's an entire market for this sports training. But the taxpayers are helping government to fund sports.
Okay.
So parents are putting in money, getting their kids out there to train again.
I don't want to sound ungrateful, but there could be the question of how far 1,000 ringgit can actually go when it comes to sports training and equipment.
Yes, it is a starting point. And so, I believe when the more we talk about it, the more people make full use of this. When the data shows that there is improvement and take-up rate is good, we will then be going to Ministry of Finance. I'm hoping next year, I do want to talk about expanding this to include sports training now, not just for the taxpayer, not just for the taxpayer's spouse, not just for the taxpayer's children, but also I want to see it extended to the taxpayer's parents, because sports for senior citizens is also something that we are promoting today. I find that as long as we're spending a lot of money on healthcare, and when you're talking about lifestyle, if you don't get them started early, when they're 40, 50, you cannot suddenly expect them at when they retire at 60 to suddenly have an interest in sport and become active.
Okay.
So all this is part of this bigger ecosystem that we're trying to improve.
You talk about taxpayers, though, Hannah, and our taxpayer pool is actually very small in comparison to the larger population. So what of accessibility and affordability of sports for the rest of Malaysia?
Okay, so we also look at not just National Sports Council, we also have an agency called Jabatan Belia dan Sukan Negara, and they do a lot of grassroots sports. And so the funding that they have been using to do programs, we redirected that this year to look at intervention, social intervention. We look at the statistics of children drowning every year, and then we look at swimming pools being shut down over the years because they cannot maintain, and poor children not knowing how to swim, not having the skill, and therefore they drown. Every school holiday, you read about that. And so how can now KBS step in to provide free sports training, free swimming lesson for the poor? And so we wrote to the police, asked for all the hotspots for drowning. They gave us a list, and those districts, JBSN state level, have been instructed by us to go register those who want to learn sports swimming lessons for free. We partner with Must Swim certified coaches. We provide 6 lessons for every poor child registered. And after 6 lessons, they have confidence in water, they can float, they can do some basic swimming, and then they graduate.
So really giving an impact in an area that not people give a lot of attention to. It's right, swimming is just not a popular pastime in Malaysia. I wonder about the sustainability of this though, because you can do it while you're in office, but you also mentioned about funding constraints. And I'm wondering, how much does JBS actually get to roll out these type of swimming programs, and how long can that last?
So last year was a pilot project, and this year MOF liked what we did. So MOF gave us additional budget. I just cannot remember now the detailed amount, but I know that this year 8,000 people would graduate from these free swimming lessons, and we have expanded it to cover senior citizens in flood-prone area. So no longer drowning, but flood-prone area. So we roll out first lesson in Penampang. Senior citizens sign up for that lesson. And then now children with special needs also. I'm hoping by showing the success of this program, which we talk a lot to MOF and also the Prime Minister, that you actually don't need a lot of money to give free skills, life skills to our people. And rather than just giving 300 ringgit cash, if I give them 300 ringgit in the form of a life skill that can eventually save their life, because these are people living in the hotspots area, we will save a lot more in the long run. And so it's really piloting phase at this point of time, and also proving to people that you can actually do it with very little money if we work together. So we partner with Decathlon. Decathlon comes and provide free swimming suit.
Okay.
Allianz comes in with free insurance for these kids.
So there's a lot of opportunity for cooperation, public-private cooperation in this. Ultimately, Hannah, you have this aim of changing the mindset of Malaysians to become more healthy, to enjoy exercise. But KBS can only do so much when it comes to changing that. It requires a whole of government approach covering all ministries, education, health, women, family and community development, not to mention state governments. How mainstream is this agenda across government policy really to make Malaysians more healthy?
So I'm very, very thankful that this whole of government approach is pushed by our Prime Minister. So every time when a minister brings a paper to him, in cabinet meeting, he will always ask which other agencies are doing this, which other ministries, can you all work together? And only after working together discussion, you bring back the paper to him. And so even looking at the SEA Games, potential SEA Games hosting in 2027, I've been asked by Cabinet to explore, talking to the other stakeholders and look at funding. And so immediately, we made an invitation to the states. Sarawak, first state to come back and say we offer to fund 50% of the cost, but we want the opening ceremony and we want a lot more of the programs being hosted there, simply because they have upgraded their facilities for Sukma this year. And so you want to make sure we don't waste those upgrades. And then Sabah came forward, Penang came forward and said we also want to play a role. And so with states coming to help federal in sports, because it's our joint responsibility. And then we also did a town hall with potential sponsors. They also say, give us greater tax incentive. We also want to come in. And so at the end of the day, when you have private states all playing their part, eventually you will not end up spending a huge amount of money because it's shared by everybody.
Okay. SEA Games 2027, you were cited as saying that the price tag could be as high as 700 million ringgit. Can we afford this price tag coming with the cooperation that you mentioned? Is that a viable target?
I think it's viable, and so we are already in the final stage of finalizing our paper to be sent to Cabinet. And I need the support of Ministry of Finance to work out a more attractive tax incentive for private sponsors. I feel that a lot of people want to contribute to sports. They just need a good story to convince their corporation to be investing and setting aside money for sports. And at the end of the day, I think when people see a good cause and they know this is worth investing in, they will. Yeah. So
the last time we had the SEA Games was in 2017. And by all accounts, there are still loose threads in the post-mortem of what happened. Is the ministry going to be making public the audit that was conducted in the SEA Games and the lessons learned before we host 2027?
They have tabled the report in Parliament, but of course, other people may not know about it and they are asking for the report. So if you are interested, it's been tabled in Parliament. Whether it's satisfactory or not, that's done in 2017. But what I want to make sure moving forward, if we're going to do this, we want to make sure that we have a good committee looking into this and pulling out independent auditors from outside to help us. We have so many people who are willing to assist. Somebody like Nades Warren has spoken to me and said, oh, I volunteer, I want, because I want to make sure everything is done properly. And so we have people who are passionate about accountability, and we just have to find a working system around it to make sure that the process is transparent. Like I said, now that's how we want to do things. Road to Goal, we brought in people from the sports industry coming through in the committee together with former athletes, jointly deciding, should we be funding this athlete? It's not just the decision of the minister alone, because I don't know enough on my own about the entire sports ecosystem. I need the experts like Nicole David, Lee Chong Wei. All these people are there to assist us.
Will there be a report on the Road to Gold program?
Definitely. We have to submit report to Ministry of Finance. And
will it be made public?
No problem, because we have always reported this in our meeting as well. So after Paris, we'll definitely be giving a report.
Okay. I want to maybe spend a little bit of time talking about the idea of sports as an economic driver, being the reason for major sporting events to be brought to Malaysia, for example. And I do want to talk about the Commonwealth Games, which was an issue that came up earlier in the year. In March, the ministry officially rejected the offer from the Commonwealth Games Federation for Malaysia to host the 2026 Games. How long had the government actually been considering that proposal before that decision was made?
I think it was just a few months. I remember early this year, I was asked and I met the Commonwealth Games Federation. They flew in to meet me. I had a meeting together with the Minister of Finance too. And we met together and we discussed this together. Yep.
I understand that the OCM was sort of championing holding these games. They were advocating for maybe downsizing the event. How does the OCM come into play with games like the Commonwealth Games? Do they happen to be the main organizer for these types of events?
CGF would engage the Olympic Council, and together with them, we met Ministry of Finance. Definitely, as a sports body, they would want to see this. But ultimately, paying the bill would be the government. And so we have to have that balance, matching passion and interest with the affordability and the ability to actually pay those bills. And so despite Commonwealth Games Federation saying that we would give you about 600 million ringgit to help, we had an entire discussion in Cabinet about this, and the final decision was, we would not say yes to this. So we actually said,
if the SEA Games was 700 million ringgit with just 11 countries, Commonwealth Games 600 million ringgit, yeah, the math just isn't mathing there. I want to maybe...
Can I just add you on that? The reason why the stakeholders, everybody was very passionate about SEA Games instead of Commonwealth Games, I think it's because of the narrative. So during the course of the discussion, they say, look, Commonwealth is about being colonized. That's the Malaysian narrative. SEA Games is about friendship in this region. And a lot of the sponsors, potential sponsors, they have business in this region. So the interest to sponsor a game because their business is located in this region is very high. And so that's why you have different considerations.
Okay, fair enough. How seriously is the SEA Games taken, though, in the sports industry? Because some people see it as a kind of playground
Friendship
rather than...
games, yeah. For us, we have decided that SEA Games would be a game to expose our young athlete. We have our pelapis in training, and a lot of times these people who are training in Bukit Jalil, these are young students, after Sukma, they are chosen and they become pelapis before they get to podium level. And so a lot of our pelapis would always say, I train for years, but I never get the chance to represent the country. I have no exposure. And so when we make that call for Cambodia, we say we would send our pelapis, the junior ones, to compete so that they have the experience. Of course, we didn't win enough medals, but we made a conscious decision not to send the senior ones, to let the junior ones go and learn.
So there is a different thinking in sending our athletes to the SEA Games. It's not so much about just winning those medals, but just giving them the exposure to compete at higher levels.
That's right.
I want to talk about the tying in of sports and the economy. So back in April, you said that the ministry would table a cabinet paper on the sports industry, highlighting the ecosystem of economic activities that exist. What's the status of that?
Okay, still in preparation, that paper. Number one, we have this satellite sports account being set up together with DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia, and hoping with that account, with subcategories being introduced, we would be able to gather more data. At this point of time, the contribution of sports in Malaysia is always measured by retail business in sports. So how much are the retailers selling for sports shoes, jerseys? So we are only measuring merchandise, right? But what is the value of sports training, tournaments, sports science industry, and there you have supplements, you have so many things in the sports industry. So when we had the town hall, they say it would be good if we can strengthen the sports industry sector in KBS first. Before this, we had about 3 officers working on sports industry. So we did Sports Expo in Sabah, bringing together different suppliers and vendors in that, and then bringing them to East Malaysia so that they can expand their business over there. So it's taking baby steps. Now, with preparation of the paper, our hope is to establish a sector industry sukan within Ministry of Youth and Sports first.
Okay.
With this group of people collecting data. For example, when we roll out matching grant for sports association to apply to hold national tournaments and international tournaments, we want them to gather data. How much are the participants spending? How long are they staying in our hotels here? How much are they spending on F&B? So all those data need to be collected. And
sounds like a very laborious process.
That's right.
It's going to take time to gather all that data.
Yes. So but we have to start somewhere.
When do you think we'll see the paper? Is that...
Definitely this year, we want to see it. So it's a very busy season for us now, Olympics, and then back-to-back Sukma, then Paralympic and Para-Sukma. So then the Tour de Langkawi will kick in. So hopefully, by the end of these 2 months, we'll be able to find some time. We're going to finalize our SEA Games paper first and then the sector industry Sukan paper.
Okay, why not, right? We're talking about digital economy, green economy, care economy. Why not the sports economy into the mix as well?
At least things are moving. Yeah.
I want to talk about the issue of corruption. It's a sensitive issue in sports, as your deputy minister found out on his first day on the job when he spoke about tackling corruption in national sports bodies. That was all the way back in December 2022. His comments caused a lot of bristling in the industry. At the same time, it was a KBS senior official who was convicted of corruption last year for siphoning, some 38 million ringgit between 2012 and 2015. How sure are you that that is an isolated case? Should we be worried about something rotten in the core?
Okay. I'm very, very thankful that I have a Ketua Setiausaha, KSU, we call them in KBS, who has the same vision as me, to stay clean while we are in office and to make sure that every money that we can save, we give it back for the development of youth and sports. And so now every committee is chaired. For example, matching grant, we don't just pledge money to you. At the end of the game, you have to submit your report and then we will check through. We also check online to see if you say 300 people are coming to your event, do you actually have photos to prove it? So there's a lot more audit happening, and our integrity unit in our KBS are very, very proactive. And also my board members that I have put in place in my agencies are actual practitioners in the industry. They assist me. We bring in professionals, whether it's the Stadium Board or National Sports Council or Institute Sukan Negara. We bring in Datuk Marina Chin. We bring in Datuk Sri Winsor John. All these are people established in their field, and they come in together with us to build this. We
Okay.
also work with Anti-Competition Commission. They come in to help us identify cartel in the tender system, if there is any. And so we are really doing a lot of initiatives to clean up.
Okay, so under your watch, definitely more auditing, more scrutiny. Hopefully that will bear results in the form of public reports that everyone can pore over. Looking broadly, I suppose, at the perceptions towards the Madani government. Now, they have come under fire for perceptions of hypocrisy or double standards when it comes to anti-corruption action. Do you feel the government is being held to a higher standard than prior governments? And is that a reasonable ask?
We have gone through all this before in 2018, so we are very familiar with the noise. I wouldn't say noise. These are actually demands of our core supporters who want to see us successful, and they want to see us long enough in Putrajaya. I think after the first 22 months and after Sheraton moved, everybody thought, if you have a second chance at going back, you must be able to move with reforms fast enough. And we are really trying our very best. For example, now in Parliament, you can see Suhakan reports, Laporan Ketua Audit Negara being debated. Government, every ministry is there to answer those questions. Select committee reports being debated. So there's definitely greater transparency involved. For example, I want to talk also about the citizenship reforms. The first, we have 5 ladies in the cabinet. And in our first few meetings with Prime Minister, we say, this must be something that we pursue non-stop.
But those reforms haven't been passed yet.
Not yet. They have tabled, but it has not been successful. So we have to continue to engage. And I really believe that, for the mothers first, we want to make sure that it becomes a reality to give equal right to mothers to be able to pass on their citizenship to their children born abroad. That's one of the key reforms that we have been championing, a lot of us. Yeah.
I mean, the law that's being proposed doesn't have retrospective effect, though. So it is a lot of mothers are still left out of that reform.
But to be fair to our Home Minister, he has cleared a lot of pending citizenship applications. A lot of people who have been waiting for years finally got their citizenship application approved. And this one, I really have to give credit to Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution. I really think of all the home ministers we have dealt with, because I was formerly in the women ministry, I know how difficult it was to knock on those doors and say, these are stateless children, please help. We have stateless athletes. The papers that we actually, as a ministry, we brought before the Home Ministry. Today, we actually get answers and we get positive feedback from the Home Ministry. So there is, I really like this Home Minister because of how he has approved so many backlog in citizenship cases.
For this particular cases,
yes,
for the citizenship
so many.
issue.
Yeah.
Broadly, Hannah, how would you respond to comments or claims that the Madani government has gone back on pledges of change that were made in their manifesto? Is the reality that change is very difficult to execute despite good intentions?
There is no Madani manifesto. This federal government came about because of a unity coalition formed after the elections. Barisan Nasional had their manifesto, Pakatan Harapan had their manifesto. We then needed a committee to look at both manifesto and look at similarities and those that are different. Those that are similar, let's pursue that first. And it takes time. And one of the effort being made, a lot of the reforms, some of the reforms that we want to do requires money to roll out. And therefore, when he had to make the difficult call of doing subsidy rationalization, we would be criticized, but he had the courage and the political will to say, this is the responsible thing to do, I have to do. Now, just by doing that rationalization, we save 4 billion. A lot of people think, how much is that 4 billion? It's not a lot of money. 4 billion is the budget for Ministry of Youth and Sports for 4 years. If I can have that 4 billion savings this year just for a ministry to run for youth and sports development for another 4 years, that is an exercise worth doing. And so I think we have to give time to do things. Everything people want to see result. For example, 1.5 years, I want to see you get that goal back for me in Paris. If not, out you go. We change another minister. Sports is not something like baking cookies. 20 minutes in the oven, you can see result.
It really is a long gestation period.
Ecosystem, developing an athlete takes years. Yeah.
Hannah, thank you very much for speaking to me, and we do wish the best of luck to our Malaysian
Pray
contingent.
for our athletes.
We hope to have you back in the not too distant future. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
I've been speaking to YB Hannah Yeoh, the Minister of Youth and Sports. This has been The Breakfast Girl on BFM 89.9.